Right now, somewhere in the world, a family is paying more for groceries. A factory is paying more to ship its products. An airline is burning extra fuel on a longer route. A government is warning its citizens about higher energy bills this winter. None of them are anywhere near Iran. None of them are involved in the war, but all of them are paying for it. That is the hidden cost of the Iran war. It does not stay in the Middle East. It does not stay on a battlefield. It travels through oil pipelines, tanker routes, shipping lanes, and currency markets until it reaches every corner of the world economy. And it all starts with one narrow strip of water. The Strait of Hormuz is the most important energy choke point on Earth. It is the only sea passage connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea beyond. Britannica says more than 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas exports pass through it every single day. That includes oil from Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. More than a fifth of global energy supply moves through a passage that, at its narrowest point, is only about 33 kilometers wide. Think about that for a moment. One of the thinnest bottlenecks in the world carries one of the largest shares of global energy. And Iran sits on the northern shore of that passage, with coastline, islands, and military infrastructure that overlooks those shipping lanes. That means the moment a war starts involving Iran, the entire world's energy supply immediately becomes a question mark. In 2026, that question mark became a crisis. Reuters reported that global oil and gas shipping costs surged to record levels as the conflict intensified and Iran threatened to close the strait. Tanker rates doubled in some cases within hours as shipping companies reacted to the threat. Bloomberg reported that LNG tanker rates doubled to $200,000 per day in less than 24 hours as the conflict escalated. That is not a gradual market adjustment. That is a shock. Tanker insurance premiums also exploded. Reuters reported that war risk premiums for vessels entering the Persian Gulf surged as tensions grew. That is a cost most consumers never see directly, but it is built into the price of every barrel of oil that eventually makes it to a refinery, a gas station, or an industrial facility. When it costs more to move oil, the price of oil rises. And when oil prices rise, everything else follows. Oil prices were the first visible sign of the damage. Reports showed Brent crude jumping sharply as the conflict escalated, climbing past $80, and then pushing higher as markets priced in the risk of prolonged disruption. Goldman Sachs warned that a serious disruption to Hormuz traffic could push Brent crude into an extreme range, with some scenarios reaching around $140 to $160 per barrel. For context, that kind of oil price spike does not just raise the cost of filling a car. It raises the cost of manufacturing almost every product, shipping almost every package, flying almost every passenger, and heating almost every building. That is the second wave. Higher oil prices are not isolated. They flow through the entire economy because energy is an input to almost everything. Transportation gets more expensive. Factories pay more to run machinery. Farms pay more for fertilizer, which is often made from natural gas. Food distribution costs rise. Cold storage costs rise. Airlines burn more in fuel costs per flight. And all of those extra costs eventually appear on a price tag somewhere. That is how a war in the Middle East shows up as a higher grocery bill in Europe or a more expensive delivery charge in the United States. Then comes the shipping rerouting problem. When tankers avoid the Persian Gulf or are forced to take longer routes, delivery times increase and freight capacity tightens. That slowdown affects supply chains well beyond oil and gas. Industrial goods, consumer electronics, building materials, and raw inputs all move on container ships and bulk carriers that share the same global freight network. When that network gets disrupted in one region, the pressure moves across the whole system. Reuters reported that global oil and gas prices soared as the Iran crisis disrupted shipping and production. That disruption was not limited to the Gulf. It rippled outward to freight markets, commodity pricing, and import costs for countries that never import a single barrel of Iranian oil. The third wave is inflation. Economists and major financial institutions warned repeatedly during 2026 that the war was adding serious inflation pressure to economies that were already fragile. The OECD warned that the war would push U.S. inflation above 4% for the year. The IMF said the conflict was boosting inflation and threatening supply chains. Goldman Sachs raised inflation forecasts for major economies. These are not fringe opinions. They are the conclusions of the largest economic institutions in the world, and they all pointed in the same direction. When inflation rises because of an energy shock, it is one of the hardest kinds of inflation to fight. Central banks can raise interest rates to cool demand, but higher interest rates do not make oil any cheaper or tanker routes any shorter. The inflation has a physical cause, not just a financial one. That means it takes longer to resolve and causes more economic pain in the process. The fourth wave is recession risk. When energy costs rise, inflation climbs, and supply chains slow down all at once, the economy weakens. CBS News reported in March 2026 that the Iran war fallout was raising the odds of a U.S. recession, with economists pointing to the combination of oil shocks and market uncertainty. Northeastern University economists warned that higher gas prices and inflation from the war could seriously damage consumer spending and growth. Markets reacted to Trump's war speech in April 2026 with fresh volatility, with Reuters and other outlets reporting sharp oil price moves and investor uncertainty. Recession risk matters because it affects employment, investment, and the broader quality of life for ordinary people. A war that creates enough economic pressure can trigger a slowdown that hits workers, businesses, and governments in ways that go far beyond any direct military cost. The fifth wave is the natural gas problem. The Strait of Hormuz is not only an oil route, it is also a major passage for liquefied natural gas exports, particularly from Qatar, which is one of the world's largest LNG exporters. When LNG tanker rates doubled almost overnight in 2026, the impact was felt in European and Asian gas markets almost immediately. Gas prices affect heating, electricity generation, industrial production, and fertilizer manufacturing in ways that spread through economies for months. Europe, which had already been dealing with energy security concerns from earlier disruptions, faced renewed pressure. Asia, which relies heavily on LNG imports for power generation, was also exposed. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a Middle Eastern problem. It is a European problem and an Asian problem too. Then there is what Reuters described as the beauty industry. In April 2026, Reuters reported that the Iran war was driving up costs for the beauty industry through higher plastic prices and more expensive transport. That is a specific example of something much broader. The war's hidden cost reaches into industries and supply chains that have nothing to do with energy at all. Plastic feedstocks come from petrochemicals. Transport depends on fuel. When those inputs rise in cost, every downstream product is affected. That is the hidden cost of the Iran war laid bare. It is not just missiles and airstrikes. It is a tax on the entire global economy. It shows up in oil prices, gas bills, shipping costs, inflation numbers, airline fares, grocery receipts, and recession warnings. It reaches countries that have no military involvement and people who have never heard of the Strait of Hormuz. And here is the most important point of all. The fighting can stop, but the economic damage does not stop the same day. Supply chain disruptions take months to unwind. Inflation does not disappear the moment a ceasefire is signed. Insurance premiums stay elevated as long as uncertainty remains. The cost of war is not just what happens while the bombs are falling. It is what happens after them. That is the hidden global cost of the Iran war. Most people will never see a missile, but almost everyone is already paying the bill.